today we're going to put on that stamp pattern, our net weight, and finish this project up. For the stamp pattern, you should find a simple image, something that would look good repeated and just not too complicated. So I found this simple heart here, but I need to get this prepped first of all in order to create this stamp pattern. So the first thing I want to do is I want to remove it from its background. I picked a really simple image, but not only that, I picked something that was on a really simple background, just plain white, and that's going to make it really easy to remove from the background. So using my magic wand, what I can do is I can select the background white area and then go up to select inverse, and that'll select my heart. Then I'm going to go into select and mask, and there's not much that I need to do here because you can see I have a really nice edge on this already. But I do want to output to a new layer. Okay, so now I have my heart, which is now removed from the background and on its own new layer. The next thing I need to do is I need to get this sized correctly. So I'm going to use the crop tool. So let me activate that. And we're going to make this really small. So based on the size of my can label, I want to make this 1/4 of an inch, which is 0.25 by 1/4 of an inch, 0.25. And I'm going to leave the resolution at 300 pixels per inch because that matches the document that we're bringing it into. And then I just want to get this set just right without cutting off any of my image, and then go ahead and accept. Okay, now if I Command 0 and zoom back out, you'll see that this is now pixelated, and that's because we made it so small. But don't worry about that because we're going to be using this as a very small pattern on our label, and so it will not appear to be pixelated once we place it on there. To create our stamp pattern, we have to select this whole square. So we're going to use Command A to select all, and if you look carefully, you'll see marching ants around the outside. And then we go up to File, Define Pattern, and then call this whatever you want. So heart makes sense for mine, so call it something that makes sense for what it is and say OK. All right, now that stamp pattern has been created, I'm going to go back to my can label and I'm going to go to my rectangular marquee and I'm going to create a rectangle where I want this stamp pattern to go. So let me just drag out a rectangle. I want to put my stamp pattern across the bottom. And I'm making this bigger than I think it needs to be. And it's better to do that, to make it a little bit bigger than smaller. Okay, so I have it much bigger than I think I need, and that's okay. And then I'm going to go to the top of my layers panel and start a new layer. And I want to call this layer Stamp Pattern. Okay, now while on this stamp pattern layer, I'm going to go up to Edit, Fill, and you want to pull this screen down to Pattern, and then pull your patterns down, and the very last one should be the one you just created, and say OK. All right, this is going to work for me. If you find that you don't have a complete pattern, that it's just completely cut off like what you're seeing on the top or on the bottom, you may have to undo that step, make a bigger rectangle, and refill it. But this is going to work because I have actually 2 complete rows of full hearts, and that's good. I only need 1, so I can work with 2. So I'm going to Command D to deselect first, and then I'm going to get rid of these partial hearts. So using the rectangular marquee, I'm just going to drag along this top row of partial hearts and hit delete, get rid of those. And I'm actually going to get rid of, Command D again, I'm going to get rid of the second row of hearts because I only want 1 row. Delete. Oops, and I made a mistake because my my rectangular marquee went into the third row and I need that row. So let me Command Z, Command D, and this time I'm going to be a little bit more careful and make sure I'm not touching that row that I need. Okay, delete, that's better. Okay, and then Command D and get rid of this bottom row of partial hearts here. Okay, that looks good. Now sometimes your side hearts or your side image, whatever it is, might be cut off and you would want to get rid of those too. Mine actually turned out perfect, so I don't have to worry about that. But I am going to Command T and I'm going to move it down so it's at the very bottom of my can and accept. Now you'll notice that my hearts are going through my barcode a little bit, and it's also going through my ingredients a little bit. So you have options with this. You can either delete the pattern right here and right here. In this case, I think since it's so close, these two are so close, I'm just going to nudge that barcode up a little bit because that's not going to hurt anything, and I have space. So let me just nudge that, and I'm using the arrows on my keyboard to nudge it just slightly and accept. Okay, so that works really well with that. And then for the ingredients, I think I will just go back to my stamp pattern. I could either move it behind the ingredients, or I could just get rid of the hearts in this area. I'm going to undo that because I did snip into this heart a little bit. So let me zoom in while I do this so I can really see what I'm doing. And I have to make a decision. Do I want to get rid of this little heart here at the edge, or do I want to keep it? And I think it looks nice to just kind of keep that heart, just to have a little tie-in there at the very edge. Okay, with that looking nice, I'm going to now put my net weight in. So I'm going to activate my type tool. And you'll remember that the ingredients were done in Arial, and my plan all along was to repeat that. And so I'm going to repeat Arial, and that is going to cover my graphic design principle of repetition. I also have repetition in color all over the place. All right, so this is going to go on the front of the can down here in the lower right hand corner. But I'm going to go ahead and do my typing up here, and then I'll move it into place, and then I'll deal with my stamp pattern here. So let me go ahead and just click to start that. With the net weight, you want to right justify this. So go ahead and go to right justify, and then I'm going to just copy what I see on the Campbell Soup label as far as the net weight goes. I want this to look like an authentic can that you might see on the shelf. So I'm just going to duplicate that. So I'm going to, with my cap locks on to start with, NET period space WT period. And then I'm going to return to the next line. And then I have 10 3/4 ounces, OZ. And then I'm going to return. And then I have in parentheses, this is going to be in grams, I have 305 grams. And so it's just G, no space, and then end parentheses. Just like that, okay? And then accept. Now I'm going to Command T and move it into the front of the can in the lower right hand corner of the front of that can. And I'm going to decrease the size because we don't want it too obvious there in the front of the can. Like that. Okay, now I need to take care of these hearts that are behind it because now it's really difficult to read. So going back to my rectangular marquee and going back to my stamp pattern, Let me zoom in. These hearts are so close together that I really need to zoom in to see what I'm doing. And this turned out nicely, so I can get rid of 2 complete hearts instead of having a partial heart. So a lot of this is just problem solving. If you have your net weight over your stamp pattern or anything else over your stamp pattern, it's better to remove a whole part of the stamp instead of a partial stamp. But sometimes removing part of a stamp is okay too. So it's just what really looks good and what's going to work the best for what you're doing. Okay, so that's it. So I'm ready to turn this thing in. So things that I need to check before turn in. First of all, check all 4 principles of graphic design and make sure you have evidence of all 4 of those. So contrast, we do have contrast on this. The barcode over the light colored background creates a lot of contrast. The red over the light background creates a lot of contrast. And so it just makes everything easy to see. Alignment, we worked a lot with alignment. We have center alignment with the title and the front image. We have the nutrition facts aligned with the ingredients. We have right alignment with the net weight. So we have a lot of evidence of alignment going on here. Proximity. Proximity is closeness of things. And so just by putting in those guidelines in the beginning and putting everything we want in the front of the can in close proximity right here, that's proximity. And then the things that aren't as important but are required by law to have on the can are in close proximity on the other 2/3 of the can. Okay, so proximity, we are definitely using that. And then finally, repetition. We have lots of repetition. First of all, the stamp pattern is repetition in itself, but it's also repetition with the hearts that I have up here. The red is repeating in the hearts and in the title. The Arial font repeats here and here. So there's a lot of repetition going on as well. And I'm just looking for evidence of one of each of the principles of design on your can label. Okay, also, I'm looking for some kind of a color scheme. As you recall, this one has analogous colors. So all the colors on this particular design are on one side of the color wheel touching each other. You might have complementary colors, which are opposite each other. And there are other color schemes besides analogous and complementary. So if you know a little bit about color theory, or maybe you check the poster on the wall in class, then you could have another type of color scheme. And if you want help with that, let me know and I'll help you out with that. The other thing you're going to check is check your spelling. Make sure everything's spelled correctly. Check your layers and make sure that everything is properly labeled on your layers. And then you want to make sure you have the following items: a barcode, nutrition facts, ingredients, net weight, a stamp pattern, a title, and a main image. Those are all things you'll be graded on. You can have other images as well. As you can see, I included the puppies and also those hearts that are near the puppies. Those things are just nice additions to help with the attractiveness of the can label. You don't want a lot of what we call negative space or empty space where there's nothing. So if you have a lot of extra space, think of ways that you can fill that in a nice and pleasing way. That is it. So once you have checked all those things, and please check your project points PDF in your module and turn this into MyConnect.